DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is, you go get an energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the most racist group in America. Let's talk about the most racist group in America, because these days everybody's talking about racism and everyone is claiming to be looking to combat racism and fight against racism, and we need to change from all this racism. The most racist group in the United States of America is a topic here today, and I will tell you, we'll get straight into it. I don't need to give too much intro to this one. Point number one, the most racist group in the United States of America is the black liberal. Now, I already told you that this was coming. I told you this in yesterday's episode, that the black liberal is the most racist group in the United States of America. I trashed them yesterday, and I explained my reasons for trashing them. Today, I'm going to explain to you more reasons why I trashed them and why and how they are racist. As I already explained, the black liberal is the black person, not necessarily a politician, who has bought into the leftist dogma, not necessarily democratic dogma, but leftist dogma, and will demonize any specifically white people who go against the grain of what they believe a white person is supposed to believe. And they also do they bring that same energy, that same vitriol to a black person who dares go against the grain of what a black person is, quote unquote, supposed to be or believe or say. This is the only group out there that does not tolerate and will not even entertain listening to anyone is the black liberal. Even a white person who may be MAGA, or the white person who may be, what are the other things they're calling them, Christian nationalists, or whatever way you want to label these folks, they will listen to what you have to say. They may not agree with what you have to say, but they will listen to what you have to say, and they'll push back on what you say. The black liberal is not interested in a conversation with anyone who does not share their ideology, especially when it comes to anything involving race. That means they'll attack any white person just for being white. They happen to disagree with you, or they happen to just not be feeling your position for whatever reason. And they will attack black people who also make the same mistake, who commit the same error. They will not tolerate this. Say anything that goes against the grain of what they want you to believe or how they want you to think, speak, and perform, and they will come for your head. This is what the black liberal does. If you see them in action, make a public comment about anything that goes against them, you will see 100 of them will arrive to attack you. It won't just be one. There'll be 100 of them that arrive to attack. Now, on the internet, you got to take this with a grain of salt, because a lot of what happens on the internet, these people could be bots. They may not even be real. And they are just basically boosting up any message that gets sent out there just to make sure that the main message is heard. And it's also a way it's a deterrent. If you're a black person and you happen to not go along with the black liberal way of thinking, and you say something that goes against it, then you're going to get so much pushback against what you said, and you're going to see others getting so much pushback against them for not going along with the black liberal line of reasoning, that what it does is it creates a deterrence, so that the next person who's thinking the same thing that the last person thought says, well, look what happened to the last person who went up against this cohort. How about I just keep my opinions to myself? How about I just stay quiet, because I don't want to get all those people coming at me the way all those people came at him or her or them. So what it does is it deters other people from even speaking up and saying what they want to think. And that's why people like myself need to call them out on this bullshit, because it is keeping other people silent who otherwise have a lot to say. And it's a problem. And again, it doesn't matter who you are. You be male, female, black, white. If you go against the grain, they're going to attack you. They're going to attack your race. Even they'll attack other black people on their race. Like, hey, you're not authentically black. You're not being real. You're going against your own interests by having an opinion that goes against my opinion. All right, these are kind of things that you will see. And again, they'll attack you on a personal level much more than they'll attack your actual point, especially if you make a solid point. And I tend to make pretty solid points. I know how to formulate an argument. I know how to word my argument in such a way that it is pretty airtight. And when I do that, I know I've done a good job of it, because most of the attack that I get, if I get any pushback, is going to be people attacking me on some personal level because they can't address my actual point. Often the people who do this are black liberals. I get that more from black liberals than I get from anyone else. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's is because they're the most racist. I'm just offering that as a point of evidence. It also may be because I often push back against the bullshit that I hear from them because I just happen to see a lot of their material online. Moving on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, the most racist group in America is the black liberal and black on black physical and verbal violence. Black on black physical and verbal violence. First of all, let's get a few things clear. We know the stats on violent crime and homicide. If you don't know the stats, let me make them real simple for you. FBI data. This is the UCR, Unified Crime Report data. The number of homicides, black person as the suspect, black person as the victim, is equal to the number of homicides, white person as the suspect, white person as the victim. Yes, you heard me correctly. Black on black homicide, the raw number of black on black homicides is equal to the raw number of white on white homicides. So how is it possible that black on black is the most prevalent issue? Because there are a lot of black people, specifically black liberals, not only black liberals, but specifically them, who will say something like, well, why are we even using terms like black on black crime? People need to stop saying black on black crime. Why don't we just call it crime? And it just happens to be a black person. There's no such thing as white on white crime or Asian on Asian crime, or hey, people commit crime when there's proximity. So black people kill black people. Yes, the same way that white people kill white, Latin kills Latin, Asian kills Asian. So why don't we have Asian on Asian crime, but we always have black on black crime? This is one of the pushbacks that these idiots give. Now let me explain to you why these idiots are idiots, because they don't know what they're talking about. First of all, there are 5 times more white people in America than there are black people. So if we have the exact same raw number of homicides, but there are 5 times more white people, that means our murder rate is 5 times higher than it is of white people. The black on black murder rate is 5 times higher than the white on white murder rate. That's just simple mathematics. And the reason why black on black crime exists, and the reason why a black person should talk about it. And again, I told you in the last episode that there used to be a movement of people who we looked up to as celebrities. They were talking about this in their music, on TV, in their books. They were talking about this stuff all the time. And we were trying to hold our own communities accountable for the nonsense. This used to be a thing. Now what's happened is that if you call out black on black crime, and black people should call this out, people try to say, well, you should stop saying that because you're pushing some black stereotypes about black people being violent and black people killing themselves. It's not a fucking stereotype when we actually have the data. Data is not a stereotype. And we're talking about data that is actually looked at properly, which is a homicides. And a homicide requires a dead body. So it's not like the government can make up the stats. I was once talking to a black man who was in his 60s, and I presented him this data, and he said, well, I don't believe it because the government can make up stats. I said, motherfucker, can the government make up a dead body? Because that's where we get a homicide from. You can't have a homicide without a dead body. So how do they make that up? I don't understand. The person, of course, didn't have an answer to the question because, again, idiots. They don't even know what they're saying, but they'll just say anything because they've been indoctrinated with this black liberalism mindset that doesn't even make sense. So anyway, there are 5 times the murder rates. Black on black is 5 times that of white on white, and this is the highest rate in the country. Asian on Asian, Latin on Latin is not even close to these not even white on white, let alone is it close to black on black. We by far commit violent crimes, specifically homicide, against each other more than any other group commits anything against each other. And some people say, well, yeah, you have the black on black homicide stats, but there was this guy who was on social media just the other day. I forget the gentleman's name, but he was posting and saying, well, there was a stat. He pulled the stat out of thin air, and it is actually a stat that the exoneration rate, the number of black people who are charged for a crime and they are either exonerated or they get convicted, and then later on the conviction is vacated, is highest. It's more black people get that happening to them than any other group gets that happening to them. But this is a misleading data point. And there's a whole book out there called How to Lie with Statistics. It's not a very long book. All of you should read it so you understand when people are presenting you data that it's very easy to mislead you with data if they show you what data they want you to see and don't show you the data that they don't want you to see. This is the way it works. First of all, if there are more exonerations of black people for homicide and more vacated sentences or vacated convictions of black people, that doesn't really tell us anything. If you say there are more of those than there are for black people than there are for any other group, well, first of all, let's see the raw number. How many? That's the first thing you need to ask. How many are there? Then we need to know how many total convictions there are, then how many exonerations, then how many vacated versus how many for every other group. And when you put all that data on the table, that data point becomes complete bullshit because it doesn't prove anything. This is the reason why you got to be good at sussing out the way someone's trying to deceive you with statistics. It's very easy to lie to someone with stats. because stats are on the surface facts, right? They are factual. A stat is factual. This is true, what this person pointed out. The problem is they're not telling you everything else is also true that would disprove the claim that they're trying to make. And again, when you're talking to a bunch of ignorant people who don't know how to think, ignorant simply means to not know something. I'm not using that as a pejorative. We're talking to a bunch of ignorant people who don't know how to think. They don't know how to think critically. You can mislead them with certain hand-picked statistics because you're leaving out other stats that they don't even know they should be asking for. And then you can convince them to think one way when the actual reality is the other way. And often the people most responsible for doing this are the black liberal. But it's not always the black liberal. Sometimes it's just a black person who's not even a liberal. They know what they're doing, a manipulator. But they can't pull that shit with me, as you can see. And I called them out on this nonsense. All right, follow me on X. My X name is Dre all day. You can watch me do this in live action on a daily basis. So black on black violence. Again, we know the stats on violent crime. We know the stats on homicide. And verbally, when I say verbal violence, what I mean by this, I don't actually think that words are weapons, but I'm using it colloquially. I don't hear white people calling black people the N-word anywhere close to as much as I hear black people calling white people the N-word. If I hear of a white person calling a black person N-word, it's usually some random viral video that goes viral on social media once a week. But black people call other black people the N-word every day. It's just a common part of the vernacular now. And again, ask your grandma, if you're black, ask your grandma how she feels about the N-word. And then ask yourself, how often are you using it when you're talking to other black people? I don't care how you're using it or why you're using it that way or what you think you've done to it by using it so in such a jovial way. Ask your grandma how she feels about the word. And then ask yourself, what are you doing? Again, it's black people using the word to each other. So if you think words are violent, okay, there's one for you. You don't even have to be black to answer the question. Do you hear black people or see black people using the N-word with each other all the time? You don't even got to be black. All you white people listening to this, you know this is true. Again, we have sold the N-word. We made the N-word it's like an accessory. It's like the floor mats you get when you get a car. We made it an accessory. It just comes with the package. You got a bunch of black people together, you're going to get the N-word. This is just what it is. Everybody has accepted this. So we've taken that word, and what some black people say is, oh, well, I remember Jay-Z, one of my favorite rappers. I think Jay-Z is the best rapper. Jay-Z was on the Oprah Winfrey show years ago. This is probably maybe 20 years ago. He's on the Oprah Winfrey show, and Oprah Winfrey is older black woman. She's probably around the generation of my mother or my grandmother, and she's not a fan of the N-word. And that makes perfect sense. That generation are not fans of the N-word, especially the females. And Oprah tried to hold Jay-Z accountable for that N-word. She said, hey, generally, she said she generally liked Jay-Z's music, but used the N-word a lot. Why are you doing it? Jay-Z went and gave this explanation of his use of the N-word, which is us using, the N-word was used as a way to kind of disempower us and dehumanize us back in the days, in the slavery days, right, by the white man. What we did was take the word, we flipped it around, used it in a different way, and now we've taken that negative power out of the word, and now we have turned it into a powerful word, and we use it as a kind of a term of endearment towards each other, and depending on the context in which we use the word. That was Jay-Z's explanation, which, I mean, he pretty much didn't have any other choice, because a lot of Jay-Z's albums have a whole bunch of N-words in them. I mean, he ain't got a choice but to say anything. What else is he going to say? And this is at the height of Jay-Z being Jay-Z. This is not no old retired Jay-Z like we got now. This is active, making albums Jay-Z. Even the white people who are listening to this know we have packaged up and sold this, and we have marketed the N-word and made it into a selling point. This is like one of the talking points. It's like if you're selling a house, you got to show them the pool. All right, the N-word is like the pool when you're selling a house. So you got to show them the swimming pool in the back. Do you see this? All right, that sells the house. Everybody knows this. And black people had a nerve to get mad when they see someone who's not black mentioning the word. Again, I would not suggest, those of you who are non-blacks listening to this, I strongly don't suggest you using this word. Do not use this word. And do not think that because you hear other black people using it that you should get comfortable and start using it yourself. Do not do this. Okay, let me make sure I'm on the record. At the same time, I don't understand how black people get mad about anyone else possibly using the word, specifically when they're singing a song that your favorite artist sold to the very white people who are now singing along to the song. So you want to celebrate the rapper because he got a lot of money, but you don't want to celebrate how he got the money, which is selling the N-word to white people. That's how he got the money. He didn't get the money from the black community. He got that from white people. And they bought the song because they like it. Now you don't want them to use the song the way that you don't see them. You don't want them using the song the way they want to use it, but you sold it to them. So what are we doing here? You can't sell something to somebody and tell them what to do with it. You can't sell me your house and tell me, What color to paint the walls? Motherfucker, this is my house. I do whatever I want to do with it. You sold it to me, remember? Here's the paperwork. It's the same thing when it comes to our language. If we go and package this up and sell it to everybody and say, look at me, listen to what I'm saying, and then other people start saying the same thing that you're saying, how you going to get mad? I mean, you weren't mad when they were giving you money for it, were you? So while I'm not an advocate of anyone who is not black using the N-word, I understand why people buy the music, why they like it, why they play it out loud. I mean, I like the music. I stream it. I play it out loud too. Your favorite artist is your favorite artist in part, black people, because they're famous. All right. Jay-Z is Jay-Z because he's famous. If Jay-Z made the same amount as a school teacher, I probably would not care that much or even know who Jay-Z was the way that I do. And I wouldn't be able to mention his name without most of you saying, who the hell is Jay-Z? All you know who he is. The reason you know who he is because he made a lot of money from rap music, and he made his money talking about things that if the average black person went and tried to do, they would end up dead or in jail. The things that Jay-Z claims he did. Now, do we actually know? We don't know. But the things he claimed he did, you would end up dead or in jail if you tried it. And Jay-Z made a whole lot of money making music about it, glorifying it. And people say, oh, well, the rappers are not glorifying it. They're just reporting what's happening in the community. Miss me with that bullshit. No, they're glorifying it. How can I say they're glorifying it and not just reporting what happens in the community? Well, a lot of things happen in the community, folks. Again, I'm from the hood. Every day people wake up and they put on their clothes and they get in their cars and they go to work and they come home and they take care of their kids and they put their kids away in bed. Then they watch TV together as a couple. Then they go to sleep. That happens in the hood every day. Who makes an album about that? Nobody. Who makes an album about sweeping the street out in front of your house? Nobody. Who makes an album about mowing the grass? Nobody. Who makes an album about taking care of your kids and coaching your kids' baseball team on the weekend? Nobody. All these things happen in the hood too. The only thing happening in the hood is not people getting murdered, shot, calling girls bitches and hoes and calling each other the N-word. That is not the only thing happening in the hood, and drug dealing. Those are not the only things happening in the hood. So when some gangster rapper says, well, all I'm doing is reporting what's happening in the community, that's bullshit. That is not the only thing happening in the community. That's the part that you want to glorify because that's the part that's going to help you sell records and make yourself some money. Just say that. Keep it real. If that's what you want to do, just keep it real. Snoop Dogg in the early 90s, he used to keep it real like this. He would do interviews and he would say, hey, these are the things that I'm choosing to rap about. And if people don't like it, fuck them. I remember Snoop saying that on a national TV show many years, about 30-ish years ago, maybe more than 30 years ago. This is when Snoop was first very popular. There was a time when Snoop Dogg was the most popular rapper in the world in the early 90s. And at least he kept it real. But I don't like when the rappers start trying to talk around it and they try to rationalize it. Like, oh, I'm just reporting what's happening. Mofo, there's a whole lot of things happening. It's not like every day most of the people in the neighborhood are dying. Or maybe every day somebody is dying, but the people who are dying are choosing to live a certain lifestyle. So you're reporting on certain pieces of what's happening in the hood. Same way the news does. So that's what people should say. The news doesn't report everything that happens every day. They report the things that are sensational that happens every day. They don't report that somebody went to school, came home, had dinner with their family, and went to bed at night. That's not sensational. They report that there was a murderer across the street. Why? Because that gets your attention. If it bleeds, it leads. That's the same thing that people in the music industry do. But again, they try to lie and act like they're doing something other than what they're fucking doing. That's the part that I don't respect. Keep it real. Just say what you're doing. If you truly believe it and you truly believe that you're real, then just say that this is what I'm doing. This is what I choose to do, and leave it at that. So the reason that, again, your favorite rapper is famous because of how much money they make that money because they sell their reporting of what's going on in the hood to people who are not in the hood and ain't never been to the hood. So if they were limited to only selling to people who are also in the hood, they would not have their popularity because, first of all, everything you're talking about, I already know about it, number one. And secondly, there ain't enough people behind you. There ain't enough people buying from you for you to make that kind of money if you're only selling to the people in the hood. You got to go outside of your community. You got to cross over, as we said. And I'm not knocking crossing over. I'm just explaining it. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the most racist group in America is the black liberal. Number 3, if you happen to be black and you choose to go against the grain, so to speak, by becoming conservative or even objectively critical of the black liberal or objectively positive towards anything on the conservative side, especially now that Donald Trump has been involved for the last decade, you get attacked usually by other black folks, as I explained earlier. They're telling you that you're out of line. You are not being authentically black. You're not being truly black. You're going against your own self-interest because you have an opinion that happens to differ from theirs. What sense does this make? It doesn't make any sense. First of all, you can't tell someone else what their self-interest is unless you actually know and they told you what their self-interest is. Then you can help them understand, preferably by the Socratic method, how their decisions are going against their desires. But if you don't know someone's desires, you can't tell them that the decision that they did make is going against their desires because you don't know. Maybe that's what they want to do. And until you know, you should withhold judgment. Of course, it doesn't make any sense to say stuff like this, but this is what you hear from black liberals. And when you are racist yourself, and black people can be racist, let's address that actually. People have, first of all, I've talked about why we're in an information war. One of the reasons we're in an information war is because we can't even agree on definitions of words. What does the word racist mean? What's the definition of racist? If you ask 10 people, you might get 10 different definitions. The definition of racist from the Merriam-Webster dictionary for the first entry in it, and hopefully they don't keep changing the definition of the word. And let me look it up right now while I'm talking to you, because this has changed many times, especially since 2020, the definition of racism. The belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Let me read that one more time. Definition of racism, Merriam-Webster dictionary. A belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. The key term in this entire definition is the first two words of it, which is a belief. Why are those the key terms? That's the key phrase, because racism is a belief, i.e. a way of thinking. In other words, why that matters is because you cannot read another person's mind. Meaning, if you accuse another person of racism, that will require you to know how they're thinking, or they told you that they're racist. Only way you know somebody's a racist is if they announce, hey, I'm a racist, or they admit to being a racist. Anything short of that, you calling somebody else racist is an accusation, but it is not a fact just because you said they're racist. Again, the definition of racism is it's a belief. Racism is a thought. It is not a thing. Racism is not an activity. It's a way of thinking. Again, this is straight out of dictionary. Okay, you look it up yourself. And they say also, here's the second definition, behavior or attitudes that reflect and foster this belief. The problem with this second definition is that behavior or attitudes that reflect this belief, again, how can you tell that someone's behavior is reflecting a thought? You can't read their minds. Me and you could both do the exact same thing for completely different reasons. Do you understand? You could have let's say you're a man and you have some girl who spends the night with you and you kick her out first thing in the morning. You kick her out first thing in the morning because she was being disrespectful of your house. I kick her out first thing in the morning because I just am a misogynist and I hate women and I want to humiliate them. We did the same thing, but for completely different reasons. Therefore, you cannot assign a belief to behavior because the same behavior in two different people could be for two different reasons. Do you understand? This is the reason why you cannot assert that another person is racist. Because you had to have the ability to read their minds, and I've yet to meet a human who had the ability to read the mind of another human. This is the problem. So this whole thing, people would say, well, racism is you have to have power. You got to traditionally have power in order to be racist. That's another one of the definitions that got added to the dictionary years later. Let me see if I can find it. Systemic oppression of a racial group to the social, economic, and political advantage of another. That's another definition they have. That's number two definition of racism. And a lot of people like to go off that one because that absolves black people. That puts it on white people. And a political or social system founded on racism and designed to execute its principles. This is the Ibram X. Kendi definition, which is bullshit. Why they add that to the dictionary, I don't know. Those are only three that they got. And I've seen other definitions that says racism is executed only by people who traditionally have power, which is what a lot of black liberals will say. Well, because black people have not traditionally had power, they can't be racist. And then you'll hear people say black people can't be racist. Bullshit. I just gave you the definition of racism. Racism is a way of thinking. Anybody can think whatever they want. So a black person definitely can be racist. And there are a lot of racist black people out there. And I believe, as I'm saying right here in this episode, the black liberal is the most racist person in the United States of America right now. Very racist against white people. And I guess you can call it reverse racist against other black people who don't share their views. So they try to attack your blackness because you don't have the same views as them. As if blackness is a way of thinking. No, blackness is just a skin tone. That's all it is. All this said, let's recap today's class, which is the most racist group in America is the black liberal. Number one, I explained this in a previous episode. The black liberal is the black person who is bought into leftist dogma, not necessarily from the Democrats, but very leftist. And they would demonize anyone who goes against the grain of what they want to believe and attack your person rather than attack your point, first and foremost. Number two, Black on black physical and verbal violence. This is racism. I mean, if you want to define racism by exerting power over another person, when black people are doing things to each other and killing each other and verbally attacking each other, that is a form of racism. Again, if you want to use that warped definition about there being power. We know the stats on violent crime and homicide. The black murder rate is 5 times higher than that of any other group in the United States of America. And a lot of black people want to say, well, don't call it black on black crime. Well, motherfucker, that's what it is. Black people killing black people. The reason we started using the term black on black crime is to get the attention of black people and say, stop fucking doing it. Not because we were trying to appease white people, and white people didn't make up black on black crime. We made it up to call ourselves out. Back when we used to have internal accountability in our communities. We don't have that anymore because you got a lot of people who have come to have a voice in the black community who get mad at anything that sounds like accountability, not because they necessarily don't like accountability, but because most of their fans and the people they influence don't want to be held accountable, because the average person doesn't want to be held accountable. And most people who are part of the masses are, by definition, average. And number 3, if you happen to be black and you choose to go against the grain by being conservative, objectively critical, or objectively positive towards anything that sounds conservative, you're going to get attacked, and your person, ad hominem, you're going to get attacked. Not your point, but your person is going to be attacked. Why? Because you're not going along the lines of what you're supposed to, quote unquote, believe. This is the reason why the black liberal is the most racist group in America. All that said, everybody, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Have me as your direct coach. Let's get to work on some serious stuff so that you are fully equipped and fully empowered to discredit, knock out, and eliminate and render irrelevant anyone who wants to go against the grain of anything that you want to bring to the table, regardless of what it is, on a personal level or the professional level, so that you are never powerless or without resources ever again. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all